yeah. Our
Oh,
theme music.
look at us. Here we are in air conditioning, dancing.
Yes. Thank goodness. Yes.
Tomorrow. Hello, everybody. Welcome to If These Walls Could Talk. I am Wendy Stuart.
And I'm Tim Moss. Yes.
Hi, everyone. How are you enjoying yourself in this balmy, balmy weather?
Well, I am in front of the air conditioner. Like you said, that's where I'll be today.
There
I have to run out in a little while, but yeah, I'll be out in it the next few days. So,
but you've got a road trip coming up to Rhode Island.
Yes, yeah. Actually, tomorrow we go to Providence, Rhode Island. We have a show tomorrow night. We're doing Lube, which is a parody of Grease, Lube, and it's pretty nasty, but it's so much fun. It's hysterical.
Of course, it's nasty, but you love nasty.
It's Icavelli and Tim Moss, of course.
We love Icavelli. We love nasty. It's all very good. But this Sunday, for any of you listening, if you are in New York, the Imperial Court is doing a fundraiser for Bailey House at Industry Bar on 52nd Street. And the show is called, what is the show called? Oh, thank you, Alan. There's Alan, my husband and lighter. He lights our set. Christmas in July. You see,
right.
We're doing Christmas in July. And of course, everything the Imperial Court does is to benefit another non-for-profit organization. They do incredible work. I have written a string of 6 original parodies that I will be performing there. So if you are in New York, our doors open at 5. The show starts at 6, and I guarantee you will laugh your socks off. So there.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be coming back from Rhode Island, so I'm not going to be able to get there. But last year, Jed Ryan and I helped you out on one of your songs in Christmas in July.
It was so funny.
I was the naughty Santa.
Right. Do you remember this song? I saw Daddy kissing Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And Tim was right. Of course, Tim loves being naughty Santa. Let's just talk about that a little bit. We're talking about Christmas. You love being naughty Santa. So we are coming to you live today from PANGEA. And if you are in New York, Friday night, my husband's show, he's got some artwork up here. We're having a little cocktail party from 6 to 8. If you would like to join us, we will have hors d'oeuvres and a cash bar. And in the cabaret room, before the guest even comes on, I'm not telling you his name yet, is a wonderful, wonderful exhibit from our guest who's on today. And he'll be talking more about it. Yay! And let me think what else is coming up tonight. My show, TriVersity Talk, is got Dwayne Brown, who is a social worker, who'll be discussing the challenges of really keeping sane in the LGBTQ community with everything that's going on right now, right? And my co-host, of course, is the fabulous Evan Lawrence, who we best producer, writer, designer. You know what? We all wear all hats. And speaking of all hats, my 2 guests today, my God, they
hold just one second. I just wanted to say, this last weekend I was one of the hosts of Bronx Pride, and it was absolutely wonderful day. Just such a celebration. At one point in the afternoon, it just poured rain and nobody wanted to go on to perform. So I just grabbed the microphone and walked out, and I said, I feel like Diana Ross in Central Park.
I love it.
And sang, I want to dance with somebody. And we had an absolute ball. It was wonderful. So we're dancing in the rain. And then it was it was a very memorable day. It was very, very fun.
And you know what was memorable for me, because I wasn't there? You put up a video of you and Ricky Velez doing
singing, Enough is Enough. The Barbara Streisand, Donna Summer duet. Yeah. I was Barbara, of course.
Okay, I was going to ask you which one you were, but I have to tell you, I totally loved it. You can find it on Tim's page. It was just really great. And kudos to Apollonia Cruz for producing this. She's amazing.
Now, also, I just wanted to say earlier today, it flashed in my head. I was like, wow, I guess I am a New Yorker.
You're a New Yorker.
I've lived here for 40 years, but I had like about a half an hour. I had 20 minutes to a half an hour. And I was like, good, I can lay down, get a quick nap. And just as I was dozing off, I realized there was a jackhammer going on outside, which is still going on, so you might hear it.
God bless.
There was a jackhammer going on outside. A siren went by, and I had my TV on. I was like, yeah, I'm a New Yorker.
Yep. The jackhammer is what really counts. I can put up with almost anything, but to Tim's point, we had that in front of our building for actually 2 months.
Oh,
it was absolutely, positively awful. There's nothing worse than a jackhammer. You're like,
but I didn't even hear it. I'm so used to it. I didn't even hear the jackhammer. I didn't hear the siren. It was all kind of in the peripheral. And I was like, yeah, I'll just sleep. I can sleep through anything in this town after living in this town for 40 years.
Well, there you go. You know what they say about people like us when we go out to the country, like we're up all night, we can't sleep because the quiet is so bad.
It is. The quiet is so loud.
I'm very
our guest today.
Introduce our guest today. They too have been in New York for decades. They are what I would call an artistic dream team. We have Leon Waller with a current show at PANGEA. It's called The Water in Place. And Leon's work is in public collections, private collections, corporate collections, has a legacy of museum and educational positions. And the other half of the team, Wendell Walker, has created over 45 years of beautiful exhibition and design, most recently at the Museum of the Moving Image. So you know what? They are the nuts and bolts of what it is to be an artist. So let me bring them right on right now. Come on, everybody. This is what we do here. We slide on in. I got to get everyone in the
Leon Waller and Wendell Walker.
Yay! How are you? I have to tell you, Wendell is my nickname.
Really?
It is I got to get, we got to sit over a little more.
There we go.
All right. Are we all in? Is everybody in? Yay. There we go.
I was going to say, I've also been called Wendy before.
Okay. I totally,
Wendy,
right. I totally wasn't expecting that. I didn't think Wendell would tell me he was called Wendy before. Okay. I'm Wendy Ann. You weren't called Wendy Ann.
No.
Okay.
No, never went that far.
A little closer together.
Okay. We're good now. Are we all in?
Yeah.
Yep.
This is the challenges of streaming, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
We have this little green eye that we all talk to. Well, I'm really, really happy to have you both here today. The timing on this show, of course, is perfect because Leon's show is here in the cabaret room at PANGEA. But Leon, you have such a history of coming to New York in the 70s,
75.
1975. Wow. I came in 76. So we're all still here. We're all standing. How did you get involved in the arts?
I think since childhood, my family had art or drawing competitions in Virginia.
Oh, wow.
And I would compete with my cousins.
I love it.
And my mother inspired me because she is the most talented person in coloring books. And it started probably there in my childhood.
So your mother started you with coloring books at a young age.
And she colored herself, and I was stunned by how beautiful she could lay down a layer of color.
What?
Her hand was the pressure was even, the layer of color was beautifully done, and it inspired me. So I want to do that one day. I want to be able to do it that well.
And you can tell this guy is a real artist. He used 2 words: layer, and pressure. And we'll talk about more of that later because it's definitely in your work. You can see that that's there. So you started out that way.
Yeah, I'm self-taught as a artist. I did not go to art school, but my degree was in elementary education.
Wow.
And so I spent a lot of time teaching young people, children, how to draw and paint.
I love it.
At the museums I work with. And one of the issues that when I was in elementary education in college, my professors thought, okay, you're going to teach in elementary school. And I said, no, I'm not going to get certified. I want to teach anyone who's learning something for the first time. That whether it's a child or an adult, that is elementary education.
Right. Well, you know what? Yeah, you knew exactly.
And this was in Virginia, correct? It
was in Virginia, in VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, as well as college.
Wow.
And I also worked at John B. Carey Elementary School as an intern and taught dance as well as other forms of
the
art
arts.
to children.
Right. It's interesting because what your mother did was inspire you
Right.
to pass it down, and that's what you did.
Yes.
What was the deciding factor to come up to New York? Because obviously you love working with kids. You were doing that where you came from.
Right.
What made you come up here?
Theater.
Theater.
Right. At the time I was a playwright, and I was writing plays inspired by William Butler Yeats and Japanese No theater. And I came up basically to get into theater. I had acted also, and I was teaching modern dance, and so I was very much involved in all aspects of the arts.
Yeah.
That always is so impressive to me, Tim. We have people come on and you think they're coming on, they have one focus.
Mm-hmm.
You have all of these different focuses and you're living what it is that you are, which is great.
When I was younger, I got involved in many aspects of art. As at this time in my life, I'm focusing on the visual arts.
The visual arts.
And I have improved my ability to draw, hopefully my ability to paint as well.
Right.
Because I'm focused now. This is what I want to do. I want to paint. I want to paint well.
Uh-huh.
Now we have Wendell Walker here with a background in also the visual arts.
Yes.
You've been here 45 years?
Yeah.
Do I have the number?
Yes.
Yeah.
77.
Wow,
And
we all came at the same time.
And we met right after I moved here. And of course, our story about how we met at the Whitney Museum.
I totally love this. Tell us the story of how you met. Of course, you met at the Whitney.
Yeah. The painting, the image that you used in the promo for this.
There is in the middle.
Yeah. So that's the painting that we met over, literally. And we were at the Whitney Museum. I'd gone there. I just moved to New York. I'd been here about a month, and I was living in a residency hotel.
Oh, I remember those.
Yeah, we all did that.
On 23rd, Tim, do you remember those?
Oh yeah, I was in a few of them. Yeah.
Right. And you had a tiny little room in a residency.
And a shared bathroom.
Right.
Yep.
So I'd gone out, it was like I'd had a rough week trying to get, work and figure out my life in New York. I just come here, crazy idea I had to come to this crazy city. And I decided to go to the Whitney for the day. And I went there and,
this is meant to be.
And walk up and there's, it's a Paul Cadmus painting. Of course, it was a very well-known
gay artist.
Of an era when artists were not out, but he was.
Right.
But we walked up this painting at the same time and we just looked at it together and looked at each other and smiled.
Oh.
Thought, a little humor, the painting, whatever, and then went our separate ways, and then reconnected in front of a Helen Frankenthaler painting.
Get out!
And Leanne started talking to me then, and he had come to. There's a story behind this story. He had met another person, a friend who became a very good friend of ours from Sweden, a Swedish diplomat, and Leanne also was homeless at the time.
I was living in Sutton Place.
I love this. Wendell says he was homeless. Leon says he was living on Sutton Place.
Well, he was staying in there. Yeah. So anyway,
and collecting unemployment at the same time.
God damn, Leon was living large, Wendell. Don't try and make it for you. But you were in a little room. He had found out a way to beat this.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're homeless, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. With unemployment. Gorgeous apartment with buco bucks.
I couldn't justify my address with the people downtown giving me unemployment.
Right, I will. That is really
but Leon didn't want his friend to know we just met, but he wanted me to join them for lunch. So he said, just pretend we're old friends and we just met.
So you had to make up the.
So I joined he and his friends for lunch, and throughout the lunch we made up all these stories about our old friendship that had never.
No, wait, we definitely love this. Where did you tell your host where you had met? What did you say?
Do you remember the details of it? I think there was some story that we met in where you work or somewhere up in Westchester, because you've been working in Westchester.
Prentice Hall Media,
and there, it was all made up stuff.
Completely fabricated.
Yeah,
right. I think we kind of focused on us both being Southerners. I think that's what it was.
I
was from Virginia, he was from Mississippi, but we had known each other.
But and of course, your host from being up here didn't see through this fabricated story.
Right. We traded phone numbers, and I departed. And then the next day, I called Leon and basically moved into Sutton Place within the next day.
Okay, get out.
And actually, the Bjorn, it was his apartment on Sutton Place. Well, he got sort of tired of this situation. At one point, he would asked us to leave. This is not going to work out. And that night, he had some kind of an attack.
Seizure,
he had a seizure. We had to take him to the emergency room, and it was a drama. He was like, "Okay, well, you don't have to move out yet."
Yeah. You were there.
So then we found a place to live in the East Village.
You guys did. You know what I love so much about this story, Tim? This is the kind of stuff that happens when you come to New York when you're in your 20s.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
There's always some rich person involved. Nobody's really working or making any money, but they find a way to tap dance. You know, into like a great apartment and a great existence without having a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. But you did it.
And New York was something of a frontier then. That's when the New York was going through bankruptcy and all that. And there were muggings everywhere, and you had to be careful on the streets or in elevators.
Well,
New York City was brutal at that time.
It was brutal.
Like you said, the muggings. It was very dangerous. It was very kind of inexpensive, but it was also you had to be on your guard 24/7.
Yeah,
it was a different New York City than what it is today.
Here in PANGEA, I was talking to a young woman who did not understand when you get in the elevator, you had these metal mirrors in the corners.
Right.
So no one could.
She never.
I use those.
Needed to look at that, and we did it in the past. You looked at that mirror before you got into
absolutely. Absolutely.
People have forgotten that. They just see these and they're like, what are they for?
Right. New York in the 70s, it's interesting because I was talking with Stephen, one of the owners of PANGEA, and I said, it's amazing that so many people in the East Village are our friends now. And I don't understand why Alan and I, we were here in the 70s. We didn't come to the East Village. We were in the 20s. I wouldn't come to the East Village for everything that Leon, I had 2 friends slashed down here, not to mention
East Village was rough.
With scars, right? And not to mention the muggings. It was really dicey. Lots of drugs, people squatting in buildings. When we were talking about that with Steve before you came here, he had friends that had an amazing loft they had fixed up in a building that nobody was paying any rent in.
Right. Yeah. There's always, every weekend, there's always a car left burning in the middle of the street.
Right. Yeah.
That had been stolen.
And the gunshots nightly.
Right.
Gunshots. Yep.
The nightly gunshots. But
this takes me back.
I know. Oh wait, I need a tissue. I'm gonna cry. Nostalgia. So it's interesting because you could have chosen everywhere, but you chose here. What was it about the East Village in the 70s that made you think, if you can make it here, I can make it anywhere?
Well, I actually came here for a very specific purpose. I had gotten an internship. I had studied traditional African art in college,
I love this, right?
Which was not a field considered part of art history at the time. Now it is. At the time, traditional African art, you studied through anthropology at that time.
That's how I studied it. It was through the anthropology department,
But I had gotten an internship at the Tribal Arts Gallery, which doesn't exist any longer. Do you remember that on 10th Street? Amazing place.
Yeah.
And I had theoretically had an internship there, so I came here for that and walked in and day one and it fell apart. But there was a whole 10th Street story here.
Of course.
That was on 10th Street. Well, I ended up getting another job in another gallery down the street called Gallery Africaine. Very interesting woman who became a big part of our lives in the early years.
Wow.
And she had that gallery, and that gallery, she started showing contemporary art, and we moved the gallery to 57th Street and did some amazing exhibits there. So that was my startup. And doing exhibits really, and that, in gallery situations.
And she also promoted my artwork and gave me my first exhibits here in New York.
How did this woman influence you?
Her name was Lisa Ludlow Highland.
And is she still with us?
We don't know.
We lost track of her.
Yeah.
It's interesting that this connection with African art, because I have it too. So a lot of African art, a lot of what's created is based on deities and traditional religion. And I always feel it is interesting to me that you studied it, that you ended up in 2 African art galleries on 10th Street. The 10th Street is where you ended up. I believe that the spirits, or whatever you want to call the deities, take care of us and call to us.
Yes, I agree. And 10th Street is definitely like, there's something about 10th Street.
What is it there?
Right?
Yeah, our guest last week, Dan Sheffy, who's doing the Village Fair. I don't know if you're aware of that, from September 10th to the 24th. It's called the Village Trip Fair. Also lives on 10th Street.
Yes.
So this is 2 weeks in a row. People
Yeah.
are on 10th Street.
Oh.
I don't know what it all means. Maybe I should buy that lotto ticket and just maybe, or a horse sits the number 10.
Wendy, real quick, can you just push the computer back just maybe about an inch, because we keep losing Wendell a little bit.
Okay, push it.
Backward, away from you. There
Alan's
you go. That's it. Yeah, I just don't want him to slip out of frame. So there
Tim,
we go.
I told you we needed the crazy glue for this.
Yeah.
If they were like stuck to their seats, it wouldn't be an issue. How
Perfect.
are we?
That's perfect.
Are we good?
Perfect.
Are we perfect?
Uh-huh.
So you both, it's interesting, you both have backgrounds in African art. Now you also worked at the museum.
Museum for African Art?
Yeah.
Yes, I did. I work at the Brooklyn Museum and the Brooklyn Children's Museum as well. And I teach a course in African art currently at the new school. And
nice.
Initially I didn't like African art. And I preferred Native American art, especially the art of the Northwest Coast.
Oh, interesting.
But the more I got into African art, the more I began to get it.
You got it.
I finally got it.
Of course, I think I have a role in that part.
Yeah.
He's a big influencer, this Wendell. What was it that you didn't like about African art?
I don't know. I didn't dislike it. I just thought that Native American, especially Northwest Coast art, was more sophisticated.
So this really interests me, this conversation. What is it about that art of Native Americans that you feel is more sophisticated? Is it how they draw the lines, or?
Yeah, their system of creating forms. Sometimes the forms are flattened to accommodate a box, or accommodate a hat, or accommodate a cape.
Right.
And the way they could take an animal and play it out to accommodate what the art is on. The use of color also impressed me at that time. But the more I got into African art, and also had an argument with Elisa about this, because Elisa is selling this work, African art. I'm saying Native American work is better. And she said, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. And then finally I got it. I said, once I started teaching it and understanding the culture and understanding what the intent of the artwork is, that they're not trying to do what Native Americans are doing.
Absolutely not.
No, that's interesting.
They're trying to show the invisible. They're trying to show power, and the many aspects of power.
Right.
This is a tool for healing or for protection, or
you totally got it.
I got it.
But it's a cultural difference. That's why, and often our cultural differences will manifest in the artistic work that we do.
Right. And I said, it's not an inability to create or inability to draw or to make forms. African artists tend to use asymmetry in order to not make the object dead.
Right.
The object is still living. Symmetry is a dead thing for them. Classical, if you have one side, it's exactly like the other.
Right.
That's a dead object.
Right. But symmetry in Native American art is an underlying theme.
It is. Yeah.
It's so intrinsic to that kind of art.
Yeah.
But I find it very interesting how you could not necessarily feel the African art, but once you were taught and opened your mind to it, then you could feel it.
Yes, I could see what was being done and why it was being done this way. And I begin to appreciate the invention and the use of materials in such a surprising way. I don't know. It just struck me one day. Oh, I understand it. It's almost like, it's odd to say this, I didn't like African American music either. And then suddenly one day on the porch, I was standing there and Aretha Franklin was singing "Feel Like a Natural Woman." And it was like a stroke of lightning.
I totally love that song. It is interesting, the dichotomy of the cultures, and but I think at this point in your life, you probably would give each one equal billing. Am I correct? In terms of their greatness, African art versus Native American art, and their differences and their greatness.
Yes, they're both great, and they're quite different, and it's unfair to compare them.
Right. It's unfair.
Right. Because both are ancient.
Right.
Yeah.
They're both ancient cultures that have developed in two completely different ways.
Right. But they're doing two different things.
Right.
Native Americans, especially the Northwest Coast, they are basically dealing with family. They are dealing with ancestry and the events in the life of a person and the things that person have encountered and overcome. The wonderful story about a totem pole figure with a white minister on it.
Love it.
And the minister was so proud of the fact that Native Americans were showing his face on their totem poles. And what he didn't understand is that the reason you're up there is that you try to convert them, and they were not converted. So
they carved your face into a totem pole.
And basically say, do not trust this guy.
We were not conquered by you. We were not converted by you.
Right.
This is a danger overcome. So
it's interesting what you're saying, because then that is in the here and now and in the current. And many of the African pieces, if we go to the carved pieces, the heads or many of those things contain, or it is believed it contains, the spirit of the person that is no longer with us. And that's where the power comes from.
Certain pieces for that purpose.
Right.
Yeah. Other pieces are working in other ways, but they're all dealing with power.
It all deals with power.
It all deals with power in nature, power in material in the world. Everything in the world has power. There's nothing without power.
This is true.
And whether it's a bird's egg or birds dropping, each one has power.
And a meaning.
And you have to know how to assemble that.
Right.
Being a medicine man, you can assemble this and create an object that is charged with power.
Right.
And can be used to protect you, can be used to protect a village, can be used to bring down an enemy. So everything's about power.
Right.
So
interesting.
Would you say that many pieces are charged?
Any working piece is charged.
Any working pieces are charged.
Any piece that isn't is useless.
Right. Right. So I collect some of this because I spend a lot of time in West.
Not charged.
They're charged. Shango is the god of thunder, and power. Shango has followed me through my life for, here's that number 45, for 45 years. Shango has followed me through my life, and often there'll be a piece I'm attracted to, whether it's there or here. I get the piece home, and lo and behold, I'll look on the bottom of it, or if it comes with a description, it's Shango. I have 5 Shango pieces. Right. And I totally believe this. Shango took me through Nigeria. Shango has been with me my entire life. That's why I'm asking you about the charging of these pieces.
I think your personal connection to the Shango figure is basically is where your mind is part of it. And in a way, you're protected by it. But that's a very personal.
It's a personal thing, yeah.
I've written a play about Shango.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God!
And so
Shango. See, exactly what I said. Shango is following me through my life. Leon here today, we were going to talk about his artwork, and now we've gone down the rabbit hole. Tim, why does this always happen? I don't know why.
So
I want to make one point about African art that I think is very important. African artists have been shortchanged and kind of screwed by the marketplace.
I agree.
The same person who basically make an object that is charged and used in the community also are making objects that are for trade, for tourists.
Yeah.
It's the same artists.
Yeah, it is.
But the object that is used in ritual is more important
Right.
than the objects that are used for tourists.
Right.
Because of how the market is set up and how people's attitude about African art and what it should be. There is a attitude that if an object is not used in ritual, it's not authentic.
Right.
It's the difference in Native American art. You got to the Northwest Coast, the artists who make objects there write their name on it, just like Western artists. And they sell it because of them being an artist, known as an artist.
It's their work.
It's their work.
Their work.
African artists cannot do it, so they get involved in counterfeiting their objects, putting them in chicken coops and making them dirty and smoking them, and
to
making
make them look like an antiquity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really unfair.
It is. I mean, that is such insight. I will tell you that the fact that they'll sell the things they sell to tourists, this is something I believe in. If you don't know the history of it, if you're buying it because it'll look good in your house, you don't put any personal belief into the energy of the object. Therefore, if I have something from a traditional healer, if I have it, and say there's 5 pieces and traditional healer is selling these, but if I have it and it's an authentic piece, is going to be charged. For the other person, it may not be. What do you think about that?
I think you shouldn't have an object that is charged.
You think you shouldn't have an object
because you're not strong enough to handle it.
Oh my God, Leon, I'm loaded with him. What's going to happen? I'm loaded with these things. How did I make it? You know what? I'm being that we started with this conversation, I'd like to start with 8 pieces we have from your show here, and talk about them using the elements of water and figure and birds in them. And I actually have I'm sitting on it. You're of course I am. It's called The Water in Place, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera, but you can't. Chauncey, let's see the slideshow.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, we've got.
Yeah, we have it. Okay.
Okay. This is one of a series called The Baptistries. And here I'm playing. This is not Christian art, but it is about Christianity, and it's almost like the totem pole figure I was referring to, where you are dealing with conversion.
Okay.
Basically, the person with the back to you is tattooed and is a pagan. The person facing us is basically a priest, and what he has on his lap is a book that is open with a pattern in it, and that pattern is the same pattern that's on the back of the figure there.
Wow.
So as if he is trying to understand the pagan. And again, there's this tension between the pagan world and the world of Christianity here. The font itself is being held up by angels, and basically what this issue is about, what the painting is about shapes that will invoke stories. This is not an illustration of a story. This is not me illustrating something that happened. This is me giving the viewer forms that will allow them to create their own story.
Right, from your piece.
Right, and many of my paintings are like that. They're not they're not illustrating a story. I am using forms and figures in order to evoke in people their own narrative.
You're actually right. Having them create their own narrative from your work.
Right.
Wow. I never thought about that. What about
this? Is it's called Kingfisher of John and Jesus, and it's a play on baptism, and this is the first baptism, and it's a play on a number of things going on. You have above a kingfisher rather than a dove, and it's a double play or a triple play on the idea of Christ being the king of the Jews. So he's a fisher in that sense, and also his apostles were fishermen. He was a fisher as well. So he's a king, he's a fisher. What you have at the bottom are 3 fish, and that refers to the miracle of the fish and the loaves and fishes.
Loaves of fishes.
And then you have the sun in the background, again, a king symbol. And I think basically Christ is without eyes. It's almost like he's a puppet. The figure is like
Wow.
he's a string puppet there, and he's being baptized.
And he's being baptized again.
Right.
Baptismal. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, those are incredible.
Absolutely incredible. All right, now the next one coming up, I kind of put them in. Chauncey, yeah, he's got it there.
There we go.
I love this.
Yeah, me too.
This is
Mhm.
I love all of them.
Yeah. No, they're really wonderful pieces.
This is a series called One with Great Birds, and I was thinking a lot about this. I said, where did that idea come from? And I remember there was a painting or a photograph of someone sitting in the Mexican marketplace, and turkeys had been bound and set out in front of them.
That's what they do, right?
Right.
They're chickens and turkeys. Yeah.
And I said, oh, that's where that idea came from. I have done this a long time ago when I was batiking. I did a form of it in batik. Nothing as complicated as this. And also it's influenced by Chinese paintings. The Chinese landscape in the background there is going on. And there's a little bit of Japanese artwork with the sake bottle, and he's on the roof of a house, and there's a body of water with a boat in the background. Again, these are about forms.
Right.
This is back to my baptistry figures. In fact, one of the most fascinating part of the Catholic Church for me as a pagan is
Wait, that is like I love that sentence. The most fascinating thing about the Catholic Church for me as a pagan. That's great.
is the baptismal area and the baptismal font.
Mhm.
And they are so varied and so wonderfully done sometimes. And so this is what I'm playing on. Again, we have two pagans here. One is reaching for a book on the, again, my right. And then the other one is looking out a window, seeing a green parrot fly by. The tension here is between paganism and nature, and they're brought into this church where they're going to be maybe baptized, convinced to be, but one maybe, but the other one is looking to nature.
Right.
Being drawn away from the situation. Again, and then there's a lamp that's in the form of a seashell.
Right.
All of this is basically evoking a story from the viewer.
Right.
This one is, this is just being silly. This is Fishing with Angelic Friend.
I love that.
So you have a fisherman, and he's evidently has a friend who's an angel, and he convinced the angel to fish with him. So, it's just basically turning maybe a Christian idea on its head and making it something else, something fun, and something that, what story could be connected with this? What?
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
And here's another example of from the same series, Fishing with Angelic Friend number 2. And what I'm trying to show here is a wave that is breaking in such a way that's covering the bottom of the sun, and the fisherman has caught a fish, and the angel in the background is discovering whether he has a fish or not. So,
but it's interesting. The fisherman's got the fish, but the angel, it's really pretty undecided. It's left up to the viewer to decide.
This is again back to the series One with Great Birds. Again, the balcony overlooking a body of water with your Chinese mountains in the background. And the great bird is just walking past.
Wow. With attitude. That bird has attitude. It's just strutting. Wow.
This is my favorite of the Great Birds or One with Great Birds series because of the attitude of the birds. It's in this moment when it's going to bring the wings down. And they're going to enjoy that. Actually, I finished this and I did not like the figure, and I had to redo the figure again. Again, another challenge was to get the sense of moonlight on a body of water, which was kind of challenging as well. Again, this is the same balcony scene with the figure and the great bird. In the case, I have swapped out the turkeys for water birds. Again, keeping my theme going of water related ideas.
Right. Well, kingfishers, as you know, are water birds,
Water bird,
right?
yeah.
And what kind of bird is this?
That's a crane.
It is a crane. That's
Yeah.
what I thought. I love cranes.
Now,
Partial to cranes.
now, Leon, what are your inspirations or to come up with an idea? Do you maybe see something somewhere that moves you, or
Yeah.
Wondered this
It's a
also.
great
what's that?
I always wondered the same thing.
Well, sometimes it's seeing something, yes, but often it's ideas. Often they can come out of an idea. I have it has many different sources. I enjoy reading science fiction and fantasy, and sometimes it comes from that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's looking at Japanese and Chinese paintings. Native African sometimes art sometimes inspire me, but it often is just an idea. I sometimes an idea will rattle around in my head for the longest time. I don't know if you know of tea stories, but
Tell me, what are those?
these are stories from the Japanese tea culture.
Okay, right,
And-
the tea culture.
And these are very short stories, and sometimes an idea like two friends, one has invited the other to tea. It's in the middle of winter, and one goes out to meet his friend he sees coming, and he has an incense burner in his hand to warm his hand and warm his friend's hand. But his friend has one also when they meet. And basically it's kind of like, oh, these are two people who think alike or
Right.
thinking the same thing. How do I turn that into a painting?
Ah,
This is somehow this is how sometimes my
Right.
paintings occur. How do I put figures together to get across that idea?
Yeah, and it's interesting too that you will do in a series, like a series of paintings.
Yeah. Yes, I will. I haven't always done that. I am using gouache on black paper, and that comes out of basically working with children. I discovered in doing children's workshops that they so often work on white or brown paper in their schoolroom. They've never dealt with black,
right.
and they're surprised with how the color jumps.
Interesting.
How it makes their work so much more serious.
Yeah.
And so that started me doing that. I had come up with a number of tricks with children in doing artwork. I had at Cary School, I had relay races where I put up an
I
object
love this.
and had two teams, and they would run to the easel, try to draw the object, tear off the paper, and run back.
I mean,
And
that's
so-
Tim, how brilliant an exercise is that?
Love
That's
that.
great.
they would not.
Now,
They would never think that they had to hesitate over anything. They
Right.
would do it as quickly as possible.
uh huh.
The art I would get would be stunning. You couldn't tell whether an
I
adult
love
did
it.
it or a child did it.
I love it.
Now, how can people find out more about your artwork?
They can go to leonwaller.com and they'll be taken to a website that talks about my artwork. And there's a link there also to go to a store that sells
great.
some of my artwork and also prints.
Uh huh. And now, Wendell, we have not forgotten about you.
No, we have.
I've
so
got a whole lot of stuff I
wondering,
want
right?
to talk to you. I have a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about as well.
Jim Henson exhibit at the Museum of the Moving Image.
Yes, I think on the screen there you
Yep.
have the
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
First of all, who doesn't love Jim Henson?
Oh.
Right, the Muppets.
Yes, and he was obviously an incredible person, and I knew that already, but I've come to realize that more through the people I've met that worked with him. All of them, each of them, amazing
Right.
people. I mean, it's an amazing world, really incredible.
He left us too soon.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. As I say, you get together with a group of people who worked with him, and it's like he's there.
Right.
They thought so highly of him, I think, and he had such an impact on them that he's still his presence is still there. His standards
love
are
it.
still there. His priorities are still there. It's been an amazing experience for me over the last 10 years, really. And what a way to end my life at Museum Moving Image by starting that.
So you had been there for 30 years?
Well, I was a deputy director at the museum for the last 20 years. I was
Wow.
consultant
Huh?
on and off throughout the 90s. I first worked there to do when the museum had just opened, and I did the first art exhibition of an artist named Shigeko Kubota. That was back in 1989. 89, 90, yeah, so around that era.
Yeah.
And it was a the show was successful, and the museum kept calling me back to do other projects.
When do we want you
so
back?
we do little consulting things here and there, and then I guess it was about 98 or so. The director approached me about doing an overhaul of the core exhibition, helping to oversee that, and I started that project, and by the end of it, it was supposed to be a 3-month project, ended up being a 2-year project. And at the end of it, I was deputy director of the museum.
Isn't that the case? Now, here are some examples. Tell us about this one.
Well, this is sort of my 15 minutes in life. Right after I did that initial exhibition at Museum of Moving Image, well, actually right before that, sorry, that's how they heard about me. I was selected to design the official U.S. exhibition at the Sao Paulo Biennale.
Oh, so this is from Sao Paulo. Wow.
Yeah. This is the work of Martin Purrier. And Kelly Jones was the curator of the American exhibit. And I was really honored when she called me. I had worked with her on some other small projects, and she was at Jamaica Arts Center at the time. And it was also amazing that Jamaica Arts Center was chosen to do the official U.S. exhibition.
Wow.
And
in Sao Paulo,
usually
right.
Like giant museums and bigger organizations, but it was all very exciting. And so I spent some time in Brazil with Martin and his brother, who Michael Purrier, who worked with me on doing the installation, and it was quite an experience. I don't know how much you know about the Biennale project, but it's
I don't.
It happens every 2 years. It's been going on since I think the late 40s, early 50s.
Wow.
It followed the original Venice Biennale, which has gone on since
That
the
I knew
1890s.
about. I didn't know about the one in
Sao
Sao
Paulo
Paulo.
started up, and now of course the Biennales all over the place. But those are the two. So Venice was the original, and Sao Paulo was the second major one. But just doing the project with artists from other countries and everybody working together. A lot of craziness, but a lot of good things that came out of it.
It's good craziness,
that happened. But working with Martin Purrier was the most amazing part of it all.
Okay, now here we just jump back to the Sesame Street.
Jim Henson,
I'm back to Jim Henson. This is actually from the traveling version of Jim Henson.
Oh, look.
And that's what I'm still doing. I actually retired from Museum of Moving Image last summer, but I'm now consulting to them, and I've continued to manage the traveling exhibition.
So you're taking care of Bert and Ernie there.
Yeah. This show opened in Seattle about 4 years ago, back 2017. Is that maybe that's 5 years ago?
Well, the pandemic took some time away from us, right?
It opened in Seattle. It went to Los Angeles. It went to Meridian, Mississippi, Columbus, Ohio, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Omaha, Nebraska, Detroit, and now it's in San Francisco.
And now it's in San Francisco, and you're still consulting on it, which is great.
Yeah. It'll be in Grand Rapids, Michigan next.
We're jumping back now to Sao Paulo again. This is part of that whole installation that you did there.
Yeah.
I should also say that you remember you had the issue with the Cubans.
Oh, tell us. Right. We love a good story.
I'm not sure it's to talk about that on television.
No, you can. You can. It's live stream. It's different than regular TV.
Yeah, no. The Biennale. We got there early, and I got Martin's exhibition in early, and some other countries were having problems. The Israeli artist had a lot of problems, and I assisted him. But I also befriended the Cuban delegation. Martin and I did, the artist and I.
I'm sure they were fun.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
And the U.S. consulate was not happy about that.
Are you kidding me? All right, but
we were not friendly at all then, but I don't know how it would play out now. But it was sort of interesting. But
they really reacted. You're here all at the same show, and someone gave you grief about it. What did they say to you?
Just you should not be going there. Stay away from that.
Stay away from the Cuban artists.
We invited the artists to our party at the consulate.
Yeah, of course you did.
They came, of course, and it was all okay. It all worked out. But in spite of that, I got a very nice letter of recommendation from them, and raving for me, my work and my my diplomatic skills.
Well, I was going to say this is using art for diplomacy.
That's right.
Is that not why we would use art?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is what my last exhibition at Museum of Moving Image before my retirement, envisioning 2001 Stanley Kubrick Space Odyssey.
Get out!
Just open, and it was amazing. I mean, for me, 2001 Space Odyssey was such an incredible film for me when I saw it. My family had come to New York. I'm from Mississippi originally,
right?
And we had come to New York and had just opened, and my father took me to see it at the Grand Cinema, the Lowe's that's no longer exists.
Right.
It was on Broadway.
So
the theater was amazing in itself. But then, Anyway, so it was a major, it's always been my favorite film ever. And it was amazing for me to end my 20-year career at Museum Moving Image with that exhibition.
How how ironic, really, when you think about it, you know.
Well, and to meet Kathleen Kubrick and Keir Delay, and to meet some
Keir Delay, I've heard is
I have pictures of him, those together. It's like, it was amazing. It was really incredible. And the show was about the making of the film and how, what all the research that went into it and that Kubrick did. And
that's very challenging that you had to create an exhibit and really learn all of that, because you weren't there when they made the film. So basically everything is being given to you, and then you have to come up with this incredible exhibit.
Well, now this exhibit had actually existed in Germany previously, so this, but we reformed it.
You had to reformat it, probably.
Well, I had an amazing colleague, Barbara Miller, who's a curator at Museum Moving Image, and she's still there, holding the fort down. But Barbara and I went through many amazing projects together in the last 10 years. Matthew Weiner's Mad Men.
You did Mad Men there.
Scorsese.
We did some incredible exhibitions, but 2001 was, for me, was very, very special.
Now, you did, I have to ask you about this one that you did, how cats took over the internet. What can you describe, right, Tim? How much do you love that? Tell us about that.
Well, it was an amazing little experiment, a little project that we did. We had envisioned it, and my colleague Jason Epic was the curator of it at the time. And Jason came up with this idea, and we, it was a small exhibit. I mean, it was basically in what we call our amphitheater gallery at the Museum of Moving Image, which is like a, I don't know, 500 square foot space or so. It's very small. So it was all projections, but it was just an incredible hit. People just loved it. They poured out. People brought their cats there to see it. And we had museums from around the world approaching us about bringing it there. And unfortunately, it was not a very travelable exhibit because it was all there were rights issues and all that sort of stuff.
So tell us, I'm very interested in this. So what was it? Videos of people's cats doing cat things?
Yeah, the selection, and the Jason had done little groupings of them, sort of thematic groupings. And so there were little film clips all projected on the wall. The other thing about it that my colleague at the time came up with was projecting all this. So there were some parts that were on the wall. There were shapes on the wall, but all the content was projected into the.
So
shapes.
Everything was a projection.
Then that made it easier to do. In one way, it was a nightmare to put together those projections.
I would imagine.
In the physical space, it allowed a lot of flexibility in terms of what we had on the walls, and so there could even be updates to some of the content if we wanted, because we had set areas where the projections happened. No, it was technically it was an interesting project, but it just amazed us what a hit it was and how people just loved it. And
I would imagine.
Yeah.
You could do it with any animal, actually. I'm thinking how dogs took over the internet. I'm sorry, I'm off on a tangent. I'm on all those sides.
A lot of ideas come out of
it.
Right.
But thank you, everyone, for tuning in. You're watching If These Walls Could Talk with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss, and our wonderful and special guests, Leon Waller and Wendell Walker.
Yay!
Now, Wendell, to put together an exhibit, because you've worked at museums and galleries and
alternative spaces and private individual, private.
Like as far as the installations go, there are so many variables and details to putting one together. Everything from even like climate control in some cases to the actual moving the exhibit in or the pieces in how do you even begin to well, firstly select, because somebody says I've got paintings or I've got sculptures, we want to put it on in here. Where do you even begin to organize all of that? That's so much.
That's a great question.
The curator is the important person alongside me, the curator who has the idea for the exhibition and the storyline that will be told through the exhibition, and has theoretically selected all the works, although sometimes I would get involved in that depending on the project, because there are space constraints, there are budget constraints, there are environmental constraints sometimes to different objects coming into a space. And depending on where the object's being borrowed from, all the terms of that loan have to be adhered to. So I've always loved what I do, because it put the exhibition designer, and a lot of people didn't know about exhibition design. Don't even know that there was such a field as that. But
Right.
exhibition design was in the middle of it all. So when I would go in, a museum hires me to do an exhibit, there is the curator who's developed the idea of this show.
They developed the
But
idea.
I've also got to think about their security concerns. I got to think about their
Yeah.
education programs and how many school groups are going to bring through and how
Mhm.
they're going to use those school groups in the space. I've got to think about conservation concerns and how objects need to be put together or how they need to be housed to protect them.
Right.
And then with
right.
all those things, I got to pull that together and tell the story that the curator wants to tell.
Exactly. Right. You
But
in the presentation. You
Yeah,
have to-
it's both creative and nuts and bolts.
Yeah,
It's,
absolutely.
you have to have a,
Their
Tim,
mind.
right, like the organizational skills.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to have, but also the creativity to make it work.
Yeah.
Have you ever dealt with in an exhibit challenges of dealing with the public, or what kinds of things?
Oh, because then you'd probably have security. Security would be a part of that too.
Yeah. No, and securing objects so that you don't interfere with the object
Right.
is always the
Right.
desire.
Secure-
That's sometimes
right.
really hard to do.
Mhm.
And at Museum of Moving Image, we in our core exhibition there, we often would take a little more risk with some of the objects because we just didn't want to interfere with them. And we had very few incidents of.
That's what I was going to
theft or
ask.
anything.
Right?
I mean,
Interesting.
There were a couple way back, but I won't go into details of them.
Yeah.
But no, there's always that balancing act, and of course, it is a balancing act because somebody's really determined to do something. They're finding ways to do it. So how far do you want to go with security measures?
Right.
And of course, security is backed up not only by mounts in the objects, but by camera coverage and the guards and all that. And there's a psychological element to all that. When I think when most people know that things are being watched, they're not as inclined.
Right.
So all that becomes a part of it. How you package it all and put it all together.
And in a moving image, it could be their moving image on a camera.
Yes.
So don't you dare move and touch that. That thing.
Yeah, but that's I just find that so fascinating. All of the from let's do this show of this artist to actually opening the door and letting the public in. There are so many variables between those 2 points.
And of course, Leon's installation here at PANGEA required a complete overhaul of the back room with new lighting that I put in, and I'm working with Arnaldo.
That's another thing is the lighting, right?
They're incredible.
Amazing team, but you were amazing. I watched the day you guys came in here and you were putting that up, and you did some lights on Alan's paintings here too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just incredible to work with. Detail oriented, and you know what, he does everything with a smile on his face.
Right.
The fact that you're from Mississippi,
Really?
you know how they are from Mississippi. Never let them see you sweat. How does a boy from Mississippi end up in this end of the artistic world?
Oh, that's a really good question.
You didn't grow up like saying, I want to put exhibits together.
Yeah, no. I had an amazing father who inspired me and my sisters in many ways, and he didn't. He was very accepting of what we wanted to do in life.
And
I mean, he had his vision for me, I think, and it didn't play out the way he thought, but he accepted my version. And was very supportive.
What was his vision for you?
Oh, I think he imagined me being a lawyer in Mississippi.
Oh,
but somehow that was not going to work out. I think we realized that pretty early on. Also,
so he was accepting. But this talent that you have, the creative versus the organizational skills. Were you like that as a kid?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I was constantly. My favorite memory when trimline telephones.
Yes, I love that. The slim
they
phones.
were Mississippi was kind of the last state to get them, but I somehow knew, and I must have been like 8 years old or something. And I called up the phone company, had all of our phones changed. My parents didn't figure it out until they arrived.
That's great.
To change the phones. I don't know how I figured out the account stuff and all that because I was really young, but I worked it all out.
I totally love
and
that.
then my parents were freaking out when they show up with these phones, and my mother. Oh well, let him do it. I learned all around how to get things done.
Yes, absolutely, I love it, and fabulous presentation at that.
Totally great story. So, your early years in New York, what were you doing when you left Mississippi, and what was the dream to come here?
Well, Well, the dream to come here was, was to work in the traditional African art gallery. And I
Right.
thought I was going to go back to graduate school at that time in anthropology to study
That
traditional
was
African
my
art.
my degree
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
anthropology. I love that.
But, I got that job, and one thing led to another. And the next thing I knew, I was doing exhibitions all over the place. And of course, the First Women's Bank, who many people don't know about any longer, but the First Women's Bank was this amazing organization, a bank that existed at 57th and Park Avenue, the first bank in the world that offered equal access to credit. Of course, a lot happened with the laws in the 70s.
Right.
It's a really interesting area, and it's amazing how recent it is that women have equal access to credit.
Right,
So it's
right.
pretty incredible. But anyway, the bank was built, and it was the idea was it was going to be a gallery, and that part of it never took off. But I was involved in a show that happened there, and I made a proposal to them. So from like 1980 to 85, I managed a nonprofit exhibition program there.
Wow.
And this bank,
I
and
never
did all
even
these-
knew. And I was in
all
New
these
York then.
exhibitions, and
How
so
incredible.
that led me into the museum world, and here I am.
I love it. I love it.
There's a much
Well,
longer story and details in that, but
Again, our guests are Leon Waller and Wendell Walker. We thank you very much for taking some time and sharing with us. Now, how long? Tell us a little bit about the two of you. How long have you been together, or
Well, actually,
are you together, or what's?
we're together somehow.
Somehow, somewhat, somewhere they are together. We heard it right here. And
But the first Sunday this October will mark our 45th anniversary of meeting at the Whitney in front of that painting that we showed earlier. So it's been an interesting
cool is
45
that?
years.
Wow.
Nice.
Lots of ups and downs and in betweens and back and forth in our 45 years together. But here we are.
I love that.
But you're like art powerhouses, with what you do, and I love showcasing that because that is the very fiber of what New York is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
what keeps it going.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Congratulations to both of you for everything that you've
Absolutely.
done for the
Thank you.
for the arts here.
So now, if we could put up their websites again, it's leonwaller.com and wendellwalker.com.
Yes.
Right.
And
my site's still in formation, just so you know.
okay. So Leon, do you have any projects or have you been inspired lately for any works to emerge or manifest?
I got a new studio. Sorry, I got a new studio, and I'm just continuing to work. I just finished a new painting about a week ago, and I just keep working. There's no big project right now. I'll go back teaching in the fall at the new school. I'll be teaching a course called New York Exhibitions, where students will go to different exhibitions and create a website of their own related to their visits. And I will grade their websites. And I teach at the same place a course in African art.
Nice.
There you go. I totally love it.
So I stay busy.
Well, more than stay busy. Whenever people say that, they're like, when they say, Wendy, are you staying busy? I don't like that. I'm creating. You are creating. You are continually creating. And so are you. And that's what it really is about.
Well, we have a few comments here.
Yeah.
Scooter Pie from Michigan. Hi.
Hi,
Our good friend Nick Lyon was say hi everyone. These are earlier. Said hi everyone. Have a great show. Sue Stutzman from Massachusetts says hello.
Amazing designer. Hi.
And Billy Hess, I think, was asking
photographer
Nick, how come you didn't take me with you on vacation to get his because Nick just got back from, I think, 3
weeks. Nick took 3 weeks. Barcelona, Lisbon.
I love it. Barcelona, And Wendy's friend Hannah Q Dance Company says what fantastic artwork.
Yeah.
Nick Lyon also says amazing artwork. B Claudia, she's from Germany. And she said, very interesting, explored the website. When are you coming to Germany?
Yeah, that's actually right. This exhibit.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah, hopefully soon, be Claudia. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, so those are just some of the. Oh, and Miss Hera D says, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And
thank you.
And again, you're watching If These Walls Could Talk with your hosts, Wendy Stuart and Tym Moss, and our wonderful and incredible and inspiring guests,
Leon
Waller and Wendell Walker.
There
So
you go,
I-
Wendy Walker.
Wendy, I'm Wendell. That's Wendy. Don't confuse. Oh my God.
One's Wendy, one's Wendell. You figure it out.
There you go.
Oh, he's a Wanda.
And this all came about because, as you know, Tim, incredible things happen at the bar at PANGEA.
Yes,
And
yes.
Arnaldo introduced me to Wendell, and we started talking, and then we lost track of each other, and then I reconnected with you at the bar, and the rest is history. Folks, get out there to the best of your ability, because we can stay behind our computers and Zoom and StreamYard and all of that, but at the end of the day, some of the most interesting connections happen when you go out there and you talk to somebody face to face.
Absolutely. And we can get back out there again in person. I'm sorry I couldn't be there with you today. I'm in the middle of packing. I'm heading back out of town again for the next couple of weeks. So, but I look forward to meeting the two of you in person down in the East Village sometime soon.
As you will. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tim.
Bye.
Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Wendell. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.